Hello and welcome back to another Lost in Possession podcast. This week we're talking our top five centre backs in the Premier League history. Now we probably all do have a different five, and we're all going to go from a countdown from 5 to 1 on who we have ranked. I'm sure you at home will have different answers to us. Please do let us know in the comments. Give us some stick if we've missed out some people you think in the top five that we've maybe not even mentioned. But let's start off. Jordan, give me your number five.
So, funnily enough, I thought it would be the other way around, but actually it seems that picking the kind of fifth, fourth, and third position were actually the hardest because there were so many players I felt like could be included. In the end, I went for none other than the City legend Vincent Kompany. Obviously, we know his credentials. He was rock solid. I think he deserves a lot of credit in kind of City's Premier League dominance. I feel like he's been part of that kind of historic success in the Prem and kind of kickstarted it. Before him, I think City were known as a team who were leaky. He helped bring a bit of kind of solidarity, a little bit of old school, defending to Man City. Stats wise as well, we know the screamer against Leicester. Everyone kind of remembers that, but he did also crop up, with big goals at times. I believe his stats were 94 clean sheets in the Prem as well, which is certainly respectable. Vincent Kompany for me.
Reese, who's your number five?
Yeah, I haven't gone for Vincent Kompany, actually. It's a very good shout, but I agree with Jordan. I think most of them are very much, it could be one or the other. There are so many players of equal quality. I've actually gone for former Tottenham and Arsenal centre-back Sol Campbell. I think, 500 appearances at the level, 20 goals scored, something like that. He only conceded 129 goals in the games he played as well, which I think is very impressive. 78% tackle success. Amazing player. And I think somebody that was able to make that jump from Spurs to Arsenal at that time in the manner in which he did, he handled that criticism well, personally. And I think he should have actually played for Real Madrid, Barcelona, something like that. He was much better.
He would have played for both, knowing him.
He would have probably played for both, and then AC Inter and Fenerbahce, Galatasaray. He'd have probably just thrown them all in there. But yeah, I think he deserves a mention. I think he was a phenomenal defender and a phenomenal captain to match.
Well, I think me and Jordan are going to agree on number five. I didn't actually believe any of you would have Kompany in your top five. I thought it was just going to be called me with my City bias. But I think he's well deserved in the top five. You got to think he's won 4 Premier Leagues. He's been captain of all them 4. And you got, like you mentioned, the Leicester goal. Like, what a screamer that was. But then you've got to think of the other goals, such as when in our first title race, we were at home to United. He goes and gets that goal, beating Chris Smalling to a header, put us 1-0 up. And it just, he's deserved his statue. Where Gary Neville said, "Where do you want your statue, Kompany?" Because he deserved it. And I think, to be honest, I want to give a shout out to Sol Campbell, like Reese was saying. He was someone who was he was so close to my list. It was like I've scribbled his name in and out. Like, he's been quality. Obviously, he's very controversial with the whole move to Arsenal, but he did it for his own career, and you can't really argue with that. So Kompany's my 5th choice. So if we come on to number 4, I'll go back the other way round. Reese, who's your number 4?
Again, I really debated this one, and I'm not going to change my mind, but I was tempted. It was one or the other here. I actually went for Rio Ferdinand. The reason I did that is because even though I thought he might have gone higher, slightly higher on the list, I just think I think there was just a couple of others who were better. But Rio Ferdinand, he went from Leeds to Man United when he was young, become the most expensive defender at the time. A lot of hype around him, a lot of expectation, and he was able to be Man United's leading centre back for 12 years, I believe. Um, Even though not everything is related to stats, I think it was just that I wanted a reference. 81% tackle success rate. 504 appearances, 291 wins in that time. Like that's incredible defender. And I think he goes on to everyone knows he's a good defender, but I don't think he gets the appreciation he fully deserves. I think maybe if he'd won another Champions League or two, maybe, but what a player. I remember actually he was my favourite defender when I was in primary school. So I used to idolise him quite a lot. But yeah, he was a fantastic player, and I think he definitely should be in anybody's top 5.
Jordan?
So for me, I did stick with Man United actually for my number 4. Again, there was a lot of names that got thrown into the hat. Obviously, shout out to Sol Campbell. He was definitely my honourable mentions. But I settled on Nemanja Vidic. Again, you can compare him with Rio Ferdinand. Rock solid. Again, I say this to all of the centre-backs, but a little bit of old school, rough. The kind of defender that, as a striker, you just don't want to play against. You're in for a sort of fight, and it's going to be a tough battle. Stats-wise, I think it was 8 years, Reece, I believe. Around 8 years he played for United. Solid pretty much throughout the whole kind of tenure he was there. I think 5 Premier Leagues. You can't fault him. And he's one of those standout centre-backs that, when you're picking a dream defence, you'd certainly consider him for that kind of old school, aggressive. And as I said, if you're a striker, you're not going to fancy a game against him. So for me, Nemanja Vidic in spot 4.
Very interesting. I've got a different number 4, so we've all gone different for this round. I've gone with Tony Adams. Now, I think obviously all of his career was at Arsenal, wasn't in the Premier League sort of era, but even in them times, he was still fundamental to Arsenal's defence. He's obviously there's a picture of him with sort of many of the Arsenal legends, and he's rightly in there. I think he's been phenomenal. He was obviously the 2 Premier Leagues he's won. Obviously, he's won some of the first division before it. I think 4 in total, if you include them both. I think he should be within this conversation as such a phenomenal defender. Obviously, not someone I've greatly watched, but what he did, you saw, like Jordan was saying with Vidic, Adams was the proper old school and was someone phenomenal, I believe.
Well, on that note, probably a good time to move straight on to my number 3, because I went Tony Adams number 3 for me. I wanted to have someone. Obviously, we've kind of, as you said, we've probably not grown up seeing his whole career. So I did want to get one of the slightly older generation ones in. And for me, Tony Adams was that. I remember the games against Chelsea, just a nightmare to play against. The kind of guy who's rock solid. He'd rather die than let a goal in. Like that kind of ability and determination and passion. Again, stats: 115 clean sheets, 255 Premier League appearances, a couple of goals in there as well. And he's definitely a bit of an icon at Arsenal for that. Invincibles era, I guess. Tony Adams, number 3 for me.
Reece?
Icon. He's a legend. There is a difference. Now, I've actually gone for Tony Adams as well. I know a lot of people would say, why have I said Tony Adams 3rd? I just think, amazing defender. He was at Arsenal, before the Premier League started. And he retired around 2002, I think it was. So he lasted a very, very long time at the top level. To play that long at the top level was incredible. He was a leader, was an old school defender. There was no mucking about with him. You know, that goal he scored against Everton, you know, to pretty much wrap the league up. Amazing player, you know, and he rightly has his statue outside the Emirates. He was a phenomenal defender. I just can't quite explain how good he was, but you know, he set the benchmark for a lot of defenders, and I think he's very, very hard to emulate, especially today. I don't think you'll find a defender like him ever again.
Bold.
No, just with that, Adams, obviously I said him number 4, but yeah, you won't see many defenders like him ever again, just due to the game changing, to be perfectly honest. But phenomenal player. In my number 3, I think me and Jordan have just swapped numbers round. I've gone with Vidic. I think what a defender he was. Don't like him because he played for United, but you just know he was a proper defender. I think it was against, I think it was Kyle Walker, and you remember that tackle. It was just a one-on-one. There was only one winner. And despite not having the pace that, say, Kyle Walker would have, he had the power. He was someone who I think made everyone who was with him better, made like Rio Ferdinand a better player because you knew you could trust him. It made, I think, Van der Sar in goal knew he had, you know, an absolute unit in front of him, and he was just a tough guy, and he was someone you just did not want to be against. Really, I think he's been one of the most sort of, I don't know, like dominant sort of defenders to come out, and I don't think you're going to see many like him again either. Like you say with Tony Adams, I don't think there's going to be many like Vidic anymore who'll come out the game. So that's our top 3. Now it's coming down to the nitty-gritty top 2. I'm going to start with Jordan here. So I think Reese has probably got one that I don't think we all expect.
Yeah, so for me, back to Man United, you know who it's going to be, Rio Ferdinand. Again, you guys have kind of covered it briefly. Initially, in my head, and obviously, you know, it was a while ago now, but in my head, I used to have kind of Vidic. I'd almost rather have Vidic. If I was picking 11, I'd rather have Vidic over Ferdinand. However, the stats don't lie. And when I looked into Ferdinand's stats earlier, the level of kind of sustained success, it's hard to deny him. So for me, that's why he got the spot in number 2. 504 appearances, 189 clean sheets, a couple of goals in there as well, 6 Premier League titles. Such a consistent, dominant force in that Man United kind of domination era. Ran the show, obviously partnered with Vidic. Maybe you can attribute some of Vidic's success to Ferdinand or vice versa. But yeah, stats don't lie, and Ferdinand for me is definitely number 2.
Reese, who is your number 2?
I've actually gone the opposite way to John. I've gone Vidic second. I mean, we've already explained how good he was, but I know his stats maybe didn't necessarily compare to Rio Ferdinand's, but in terms of what he did as a defender, you know, he was phenomenal. He was powerful. He was an athlete as well. The amount of headers he won, you know, and you're right, he probably made Ferdinand a better player, and I'm sure Rio Ferdinand would actually agree with that. Yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail there. However, can you name the club that Vidic was signed from, as we've all got him in the list?
Oh.
Who did they sign him from? Which club?
I don't know.
Okay.
Give us a country.
In a way, it was sort of out of nowhere. He signed in 2006, I believe, in the January transfer window. And I remember when he was signed at the same time as Patrice Evra, but from 2 different clubs.
God.
It's been so long, I genuinely can't think. We need a hint.
Is it someone like, I'm thinking like Spartak Moscow, someone like that?
Correct.
Oh,
yes.
Brilliant. Like, honestly, I was thinking it's got to be it's an sort of normal team. someone like that, but someone who's probably been in the Champions League. So that's where I've somehow
No
pulled
doubt.
that out.
No doubt he was wearing short sleeves in Moscow.
Yeah.
Doubt in my mind. That's how tough he was. But yeah, there's again, I don't need to say anything else on Nemanja Vidic. Jamie?
No. And yeah, so I'm agreeing with Jordan again here. My number 2 is Rio Ferdinand. Now, obviously, everyone remembers his sort of United career, but he was still a phenomenal player at West Ham when he first started. I think he won Player of the Year for West Ham before he was at Leeds. And then to go from Leeds to United and still be sort of a very top player, obviously you're going to be absolutely hated probably in Leeds. I don't know if he is still, but most likely with sort of grudges that can be held in football. But I think he was that player that if you look at sort of the generation that is coming to, Ferdinand is one of them who is sort of like he'd fit most in today's kind of game than back then. I'm not saying the others wouldn't on this list, but he had the ball presence, I think, that you need and that top teams want these days. But he also had the sort of fight about him and wanting to the will and wanting to defend. Now, I put him ahead of Vidic. It was a sort of both of them together was a phenomenal partnership, but I put him together. It's got to be looking at the longevity of it. And I think how long he's been in the Premier League, and he's been solid for not just one club in the Premier League. And I think he just sort of deserves it. And to be honest, I know he did put himself first in his own sort of ratings, but let's be honest, you've got to back yourself. If you're not putting yourself first, you're letting yourself down.
I think most would exclude themselves from the list, but he thought,
exclude themselves.
I'll go for it, number 1.
I think we know who number 1's going to be. It's probably mine as well, but he did not like Rio being number 1, did he, Jordan? Is this who your number 1 is going to be?
We saw this, we saw this on socials a few weeks back. But yeah, for me, this was kind of the easiest out of the 5 in terms of rankings. Captain, leader, legend, Mr. John Terry himself. There's so many reasons for this. We talk about being old school English centre back. Some of the tackles, some of the blocks Terry would put in. It is genuinely, he would put his life on the line to block a tackle. And obviously that was evidenced in, I think, the League Cup final where he genuinely almost died on the pitch trying to defend the goal. That's probably one of the best examples you'll see of what it meant to that guy to defend. 5 Premier Leagues, a 19-year career, dominant for the majority of it. The stats as well, even when you compare to all the other centre-backs we've discussed, a handful less appearances actually than Ferdinand, but more clean sheets. And then you look at Ferdinand, who we've rated so highly, he got 11 goals. John Terry got 41. Absolutely silly stats. None of the defenders we've mentioned have even got close to 15 or 20. So to get 40 goals as well when you're a centre-back, it's just absolutely insane. We talk as well about the Premier League record of I think it was 9 goals we conceded in one season. To have that record as part of him, and a record that, in my opinion, will just simply never be beaten. I think says it all. And also, it's a nice story as well. The fact that he was at Chelsea as a kid, worked his way up through the academy, one of the youngest club captains, stays at us for the entirety of his career, basically, and then retires at his boyhood club. I think the story, the stats and everything, for me, no question, John Terry is number 1.
Reese, I can see some faces being pulled here. I don't think it's on the decision. I think it's on some of Jordan's comments
it's
here.
The boyhood club thing. He's a Man United fan. That's a fact.
I think he'd disagree. I think he'd disagree if you asked him now.
He's from
Yeah,
Bath.
but that's like Carragher with he was an Evertonian and now he's a Liverpool fan.
That's different. You can't compare the same.
Yeah. But he's from Barking. If he's not West Ham, he's Man United. But yeah, for me, my first place, it was a toss up between Mikael Silvestre and William Gallas. So I was really confused there. Richard Dunn as well, and
what a player! Most own goals in the Premier League. Why is he not top of everyone's list?
Gary Doherty's up there and players like that. But no, in all seriousness, it can only be John Terry. I mean, Jordan hit the nail on the head. I know he's a divisive figure off the pitch, but on the pitch, consistency was, no matter what, he was giving you a minimum 8 or 9 out of 10. Any mistake he made, he wouldn't let it get to him. He'd carry on. 214 clean sheets. Like, that's insane. And also, how good a player is when they play every single season in the first team. Even, I know his last year at Chelsea was eased out, but look at all them numbers, beforehand. He was playing every single game. It didn't matter. Mourinho comes in, keeps him. Scolari comes in, keeps him. Avram Grant keeps him. Villas-Boas keeps him. Di Matteo, everybody, they all kept him in. Ranieri, you name it, they kept him in. It didn't matter. He was a fantastic captain, fantastic player, and I think, again, he's one of the defenders that are very hard to replicate. So he can't be touched in this list, I don't think.
Absolutely. Like he's my number one. Like I can't disagree with you both. Jordan, I do have to correct you on another stat, and it's a bit shameful that you don't know your own Chelsea stat. It was 15 goals. 15 goals you conceded in that season.
15. There you go.
And the only loss.
It doesn't matter.
Was lost to City 1-0.
No one remembers that.
Well, it stops you being invincibles. You've got to think of this.
It won't be beaten. Reece is more happy about that than me.
Oh, mate, you'd have loved it though. 95 points and invincibles.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
But no, back to Terry, like what a player he was. I know he gets a lot of stick for other sort of aspects. I won't mention them ones, but then you obviously got him being a full kit guy. I won't say the swear word that normally gets said after that. But what a player he was. And like Jordan says, he produced goals as well. 41 is an incredible number. Obviously, he doesn't need to do that. His defensiveness was the reason why he's at the top of this list. Massive captain for Chelsea. And like Reece said, went through all these different managers. You're not a bad player when every single manager wants to keep you and start you. Even when he started getting older and older, they still wanted him in and around it because of what he would bring to that defence. And I think that's what's helped Chelsea be quite a sort of known as a defensive-ish side. And I think that's kind of helped and that sort of blooded through. But yeah, I still not going with the boyhood club sort of stuff, Jordan. But
look at the photos. He was there at a very young age in his headband at 19 or whatever it was. He's worked his way up. 19-year career at one club. That's good enough for me.
Oh yeah, phenomenal player. But two.
I think as well. One point we didn't touch on was you also get a lot. We can get a lot of insight into hearing what like other legendary players have said as well. So I think like one of the best players of all time, obviously Ronaldinho. I think he was one of the players who came out and was like, "Look, Terry was one of the toughest opponents I've ever faced." So I think there's a lot to look into with that as well. But for once, we all agree. We've all picked the same number one guy. So it is unanimous. John Terry. Forget what Rio says. You're our number one Premier League centre back of all time. And as always, if anyone disagrees, please do let us know in the comments. We love the debate. Feel free to disagree. We're on TikTok as well, so there'll be plenty of short videos there. But as always, that wraps us up for another episode. Like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.
Here we go.